Thank you for another opportunity uh, to dip, to be refreshed, and from your well of mercy that never goes dry, from your grace-filled place where we never have to thirst, and then for the energy of your word that old taste and see, knowing that it's good, and so we're thankful for that, and for everything that you're doing, how you're going to do it, even the more in Jesus' name. Amen. So tell me if there are some reflections from last week. Now, last week we were focusing on are you dead or alive? Is your life dead or alive? Do you all have any reflections, any notes, anything that that you're doing? And we're gonna get him over here to silence his phone here in a minute. We're doing this. Okay, so anyone, do you all remember any aspect of what we had talked about the last time? And the reason why we do this is because there are people who don't have the first part, and it'll make sense for them on the rest of this as we're going. And then I can also tell you that there's a pastor friend who is at work, and he has asked his congregation to tune in with us tonight because he can't do study, so they'll tune in to us. So that's why you'll just never know what we're doing and why we're doing, and the significance about being ready now. You see, as we say, you just never know. You just never know. So any reflections or no reflections, either way you do it is fine. Any reflections or no reflection. But why don't you all get about 4 mics so we don't have to be doing all of this.
Okay, so for me, one of the points that I took last week was to grow, you have to put what you've learned into practice. And as I was reading today, I was reading the introduction to the book of James. And what stood out to me was because faith produces doers. And so now the dots are starting to connect to me regarding my faith and our doing. And so with that, talking about our lives, is your life dead or alive? Your faith produces doers. Our faith will not allow us to just slide into sin. Our faith causes us to walk in obedience. And so those things were in this introduction, and I was like, I get it. And I was so excited when I was reading it today. Faith produces doers. And then, of course, Pastor Petty pops up in my mind as I'm reading it, and I'm like, I get his walk now because he is a producer because of his faith. And so now I'm just excited about learning more about my faith because it just causes you to do things different because of the faith that you have in Jesus Christ.
Right. So Ron, you can come in and join us because what we're going to do is we're going to keep this, and we're going to find a way to make these whites get around in the circles in the right way. We're going to make this happen. Uh, so. Um, I'm glad that you had mentioned that. I'm going to paint this image for you all to know about how to go about doing something. So Michael, this will be helpful for you because I'm going to give a golf analogy. And in giving this golf analogy, it should help us to look at what we need to be doing in our walk. And so you can develop bad habits through a routine that you have. You can overcompensate one way, you can overcompensate another way, and then you want to be so successful in doing something that you'll press the issue and you're pressing it, and it's like you can practice wrong. And you can practice doing the wrong thing to try to make it right, but it's still wrong. You're working hard, you're giving it your best, and then you find yourself convincing you that what you're doing is right, and it's just so off. It's just so off. Are you all following it? Can you follow it? And you find yourself justifying, and don't be called out. I mean, when you get called out on something, and then you got to go about justifying what you've done, and it still turns out wrong. It just still turns out wrong. So golf is filled with some simple things that need to take place because the ultimate goal is to hit a ball in a direction that you intend. In our faith, we're trying to do what pleases God. And you can get distracted. In golf, you can get distracted in so many ways. The worst error that could be made is taking your eye off of the ball. And what that means is you have to do a lot of things to take your eye off the ball. Your body has to move. Your head has to come up. There are some other things. The position you started out in has to go another way. So you get what is called misaligned. Misaligned. Now, these are terms we're talking about. So when we finish talking, we're going to see how you can transfer these things. And you get misaligned. In a car, they put it up on a machine and they look at specs, and these specs say it should be like this and it should be like that. As soon as they put it on a machine, they can tell when the wheels on your vehicle are off. They put it, and the specs for this vehicle are supposed to be like that. They'll take it, they'll sit it on, and they can say right away, you're off. And you have to make a decision. Do you want us to correct it or not? So, because there are some things that I need to do differently in golf, although I know what needs to be done, follow this now. I know exactly what needs to be done. Just before I came here, was working with a youth who is an aspiring one who is going to do well, that's being trained in a junior PGA event. So I've been assigned to work with him. So I know what needs to be done. You got this right here in my head. I know exactly what needs to be done. The question is, does it physically translate from my head up here to acting it out in that way? Now, are you all following it? You all been reading the word and you've been all in the word. You're following all these dots. This just helping me out to connect all these dots. So in order to do this, the images have to change so that whenever I'm reminded of what needs to happen to be done right with golf, I need to have a different set of images in my thought process, that whenever there's a thought about golf, it'll go to doing it the right way. So what I've been doing is just taking footage of how to hit the ball properly, just from various individuals about how to hit it properly, just to have images of how it's supposed to look being hit properly. And just to keep these images coming, so that when it says you hit a ball, all you can see are these images that say this is what needs to happen for it to go properly. And so if I get a golf club, what comes to mind is position, location, alignment, because these are the images that produce the outcome, because all this footage that I'm looking at is turning out right. There are no flaws. It's turning out right in order to say, if you do something that looks like this, even though it's different individuals, it's not footage of the same individual, but the concept remains the same to get to the intended goal. Now, in order to do that, I can't look at me. Got this? Man, this is deep now. Further along going with this. Didn't know we were going here. I can't look at me because my footage would be off. Because otherwise I wouldn't have a need to look at all of the rest of the footage. So I can't use me as the example. In spite of what I say, oh, I know what I need to do. I know how to do it. Nobody has to tell me how to do it. I've done this before. I've been successful. I've done this. I've done all of that. Now, how does that help you in your walk? I just put some things out there, and we got mics everywhere now. And now, after you get over the shock of hearing all of that, then we're going to get some feedback. Now, how does that help you in your walk? That word picture. That word picture.
So that help.
Wait, I want to have them all on.
Okay.
You got to turn it on.
Is it on? I can hear it's on, but I can't hear me.
Not as loud as
Okay.
a little bit. Sometimes if
Let's see.
Okay.
you can't hear each
Am I better now?
No, you're not a whole lot better.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm speaking. This better? Okay. All right.
Now the problem was not in the speaky. It was in this. It was in the tech. That was not a speaker problem. That was a tech problem. Okay, now go on.
So what I'm hearing, how it's going to help me, in order for me to stay in alignment, right? Because I want to be in alignment with the Lord. I'm going to have to study. right? So I can learn how to do life properly. And I have to find a better example than myself. So I can't be measuring myself by myself.
Now, did you know there's a passage in the Word that says you're comparing yourselves to yourselves, but I won't tell you where it is, but it is in there. But now go on. That you make yourself the standard, but go on.
So those, and then I wrote down what you said about position, location, and alignment. But I probably need a little bit more clarity on location.
All right, so when it comes to God, so let's just say there is a position that your body is in. Your body is in a certain position to allow you to move in a certain way that remains lined up. The goal is to have your body lined up in the direction that you want to go. So let's just start there. So that just means not one part of your body should be lined up. Your feet, your shoulders, your arms should be lined in a certain direction so that everything is in sync. So that's position. So then alignment says, where do I want to go? Well, if one part of you is set up this way and another part of you is set up this way, then that means there'll be no control. It's going to be awry. And so it doesn't matter whatever else you do, it's going to be off because you were out of alignment. Out of alignment. Out of alignment. Okay. Oh, this is heavy stuff here. Oh, he's got you.
Oh, no. So what came to my mind was taking footage of how to hit it properly, and instead of us all focusing on, and you're the best example, I have to say, but that was many issues, looking at a pastor and when he falls, but if you look at the example, the footage, and one that my daughter gave me a card and it said WWMD, what will mama do? She said, because I've been this good example, and I reminded her that I'm following after Jesus, and I would want you to do the same because I'm going to fall. Hence, when she came home from school, she said, Mama, I didn't know Mama's curse, because so when she heard me later on, it was just so devastating to hear me. So don't look at the WWMD, look at this one certain footage that we're all, I'm just one of those examples trying to get to that.
A cussing mama, but go on. But I promise you, there are there are multiple. And I know.
I didn't, because she didn't know that Mama's curse.
All right.
But I broke her little heart, and I did. So that's that one
Right.
footage of what we're trying to emulate, which is God. And if we pay attention to Him and emulate what Jesus did here, instead of trying to focus so heavily on pastors, and when they fall, then we and we lose. Right. That's what.
Okay. Anyone else?
I thought about the distractions and taking your eye off the ball. Because I can remember years ago, I couldn't play tennis for nothing. I could not hit the ball. Then I got me a good coach, teacher, Edmund. And he told me, you got to look at that ball, and at the moment it hits the tennis racket. And I became a pretty good tennis player because he taught me to keep my eye on the ball, like you said, the same with golf. And so the same with the Lord, and not getting distracted, keeping that focus and keeping my eye on the prize. Amen. That's what I thought of the high calling in Jesus Christ. Because distractions will take you out of alignment and get you to thinking all kinds of things that are not godly. So focus was my takeaway.
Yes, sir.
With the golf analogy, There is a commercial that Tiger Woods is in now for the Bridgestone golf ball, and he talks about that wandering mind. That's the whole focus of the commercial. It's about how our minds wander when we're on the golf course, because that's what they're advertising. But I think it's very apropos for what we're talking about, that it is that we tend to kind of get off focus of what we're supposed to be focused on, that misalignment, and that's kind of what causes some of the issues in our lives. So I just like the fact that that that's a good analogy that you're using, and that they are saying that, like, look, we know that your minds wander when you're on the golf course. You've said that. I know that your mind wanders when you're in church, when you're on your knee, or whatever the case may be, and it's about getting focused, as First Lady said, on the prize, on the ball.
Mm.
Yeah, today I went and got my car. You go in and get it checked on, and this needs to be done at this time, this needs to be, so there was a whole lot of stuff that they said was due on my car. But one of the things they talked about was wheel alignment. And we live in St. Louis, and there's a lot of bad roads and potholes. So it made me think about, if you're not focused, you'll keep driving into those potholes. And then when you drive into the potholes, your response to it may not be appropriate. Sometimes you may say some things, you may respond a certain way. But if you're focused and you're driving,
And the pothole can't. The pothole can't talk, right?
that's right.
Okay.
That's right. And so if you see the pothole, then you go around the pothole. You're focused, you're driving, you're seeing your surroundings. So that's what I kind of got to take away from.
Okay.
When I heard position, one of the things that I was thinking of was humility. And then with location, for me, I was thinking about, like, me putting myself in a position to be around people, and as you were saying, that are walking that walk out, so that I have a better understanding of how to do that, because I can't do it on my own, especially starting off. I need people around me that have the right focus, alignment, and aim, and are more mature than I, so that I could start walking in that same way.
Alignment and focus is pretty deep. What I've learned even now and in years past, that you can easily fall out of alignment when you don't focus on the prize, and which is how I call in Christ Jesus, what the First Lady said. But nevertheless, what I've also learned, that your past victories or what you know or learned, I mean, it helps, but it can't help you get back in alignment. What you've learned or know in the past, you have to do what you have to do, what you know to do to get back in alignment. And it's just get focused mentally.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Because let me walk you all into something. Kalia started down a path. One of the things you all heard me say, or maybe you didn't hear me say, but let me amplify a little bit more, a very significant part, and that was, I said I watched a lot of footage and it was not all of the same person. But the ultimate end was the same, and so it meant then you have to have models around you that you can reference back all of the time, because the only footage that I was watching was of professional golfers. You followed it? That's all that I was watching, which means established track record, all those things, and to be able to say these are examples. So what that means is, if you look around, you'll see living examples of how to do it right, if you're willing to pay attention, to say, I'm a young woman. So if I'm a young woman, then what I need to look at, I need to look at somebody who's a little bit more mature and see where are they, what do they look like. That if I'm a man, I need to look to see that. If I'm a father, if I'm this, if I'm in ministry, I got to start looking at where am I, what do I need to look at, because it's already there. The question is, will we make ourselves available to look at it and say, I need to keep modeling after that, or I would justify why I am the way I am or make an excuse. Now, you got to remember, as soon as I walked to this place today, they said, this is the young man we want to assign to you. So their thought in their mind is, we know you can help him. Now, that's based on this awareness, but at the same time, I know that what I've got to do is, might not knowing that today, but I'd already started this process of I need to go to the higher level beyond what I already know because of having drifted and not continued to put in the time to be at the most proficient level of something that I always know how to do. See, the question isn't whether or not I have the capacity. I haven't put the time. So I'm going to use this word discipline to continue to do what's already there. What's already there. Is it because I know how to do these things, but because of the discipline of not continuing, that's what will cause the drifting. So it's a combo of things. It's a combo of if. That's why John 8 says, if you continue in the word, if you continue in the word, he said, the truth will make me free. You are my disciples indeed, if you continue, is what it says. If you continue, not when you go get a full, not when you have a great experience. If you continue, if you have the discipline to keep on, to never take satisfaction in, I got it today, or I did it this, and if you continue, even when nothing's bothering you, even when it seems like you're having these great moments, even when, quote, you don't seem like you're under attack. If you continue, because the tendency is when things are going well, you get a little lax. That's human nature. I ain't worried about that. I got this covered. I can take my time. And before you know it, you do what is called drift. You're there before you know it. You're there before you know it. Now, again, so I'm coming full circle back to this. It's that I know how to hit the ball far. I'm expected to hit it far. But I can take it for granted that I can hit it far and don't do the fundamental things to consistently do it. So I could talk about the highlights. I could talk about this and say, no big deal. I know how to do this. But the question is, are you leaving something out to get to a certain point? It's just like I met with my pastor today to sit down to make sure that I'm tuned up. Okay? To make sure that I'm tuned up. Although I'm talking to pastors all the time, but to make sure I'm tuned up, I'm not going to let the fact that there are these that come to me get in the way of, since they come to me, I don't need to get tuned up and stay aligned and stay focused, because it'd be so easy to fall into that. It's like, oh no, that's not going to happen. It's a continual, and it was already set. It was already preset, and I didn't have to reach back out. He reached back out. He said, what is your schedule? Because I'll be gone. Here's the deal. In order to make sure that I stay, because we got it built in so that I'll remain accountable in that way and not take it for granted that I'm already there. Although I'm already there, but I can't take it for granted that I'm already there. Okay? I'm just some dumb. I ain't plumb dumb. Are you all following it? All right. All right. So how much time do we have? Okay. All right. Well, so I want you to go to Colossians chapter 3, and I'm going to move kind of quickly. So, Karen, I'm going to get you to read a few of these passages, and I'm going to hammer through because we're going to get through this entire chapter tonight. But because it all ties in, we have to get through all in order for you to have the context. Because again, this is, are you alive or dead? This is going to in Colossians chapter 3. So I want you to start at verse 1. And then we're going to work our way from there. In Colossians chapter 3, the time is going to be spent in Colossians chapter 3. Okay.
If then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God.
So I want you to notice where it says, and you died. In other words, you no longer have the right to run your life. Notice, go back to that again.
For you died, and your life is hidden in Christ Jesus.
All right. Your life is hidden. You died, which means then, what should people see? Should it see dominating you? Or it says your life is hid. Hid, in other words, behind. First thing that you see is an expression of him. Because notice that if you've been raised, in other words, ask the question, say, are you? So you could almost say, am I? And it says, well, are you? It says, if you are, then here's the thing. It said, if you are, then notice that it says, take it to the next level. Set your affection or your thoughts on things above. Don't get so caught up in the day-to-day. The day-to-day. It's got this higher level. It says if, but it's conditional. It's only if you're his. Only if you're his. And so this doesn't even apply to somebody who's not his. It says if you're his, then you got to take it up to another level. And he's not saying, pray to me that I become better. It says, take it to the next level. It says, you can because you are. Keep going. Let me read that. Go there. Do verse 2 through 4.
Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, you also will appear with him in glory.
So he's already established the fact that we're on a track. We're on a track to say, when he comes, you're going to be as he is. In 1 John, it say, we shall be as he is, because we'll start to emulate him. So now it says, because of that, and this is where we'll pick up the page. Now listen to verse 5. If that be the case, then do verses 5 through 8.
Therefore, put to death your members which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desires, and covetousness, which is idolatry.
So let me ask now, whose is this? It says it's us. It's not the devil. You can't say the devil got into me. It didn't say any of that. The devil didn't get into you. Now, we can't even come with that stuff. It says, this is you. It says when you going off and angry at somebody, it said this had nothing to do with the devil. It had nothing to do with the devil. That old devil, it wasn't the devil. We so quick to blame him. You know, if he was a human, he'd be saying, you know, I didn't do this. He'd be up for God. You know, that wasn't me. I'm down the street. And they talking about me, and I'm down the street. And they saying I did it. He said, I got a witness. I wasn't even on the scene. All right, okay.
Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them.
All right, stop. So he's saying you don't have to go there. For what we say, well, you know, I used to. I don't do it as much as I did. He said, well, you don't have to go there at all. He said, you don't have to go there. He says, because you got an out. He said, you got an out. He said, now you got to decide. And he says, the wrath of God is coming on those who can't get out of it. But we can't say that we can't stop. Did you know that today you could say, I've cussed for my last time? And I can hear somebody saying, it's not that easy. It is not that easy when you've been doing it. Does this tell you that you got to put yourself on a plan, on a down payment plan, and then you go from 10 words to 7 and then down to 5 and 3? Does this say that this is whether you can invest, you can divest from cussing? It just says, you follow what I'm saying? Well, I used to use 10 words, now I only got 5. No. Verse 8.
But now you yourselves are to put off all
Okay,
these.
notice that. Do that. Say that again now.
But now you
Who?
yourselves.
Who? So who is it? Is that a prayer request? Is that a prayer request? Can you do you have a right to ask God to help with this? When he's saying you yourselves, remember it goes back to the original thing. If you are his, he says, no, don't come ask me about something I've already given you the authority to do. And stop blaming folk for it. This is you. This is your willful, because it says, all right, read the verse again.
But now you yourselves are to put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth.
All right, notice. Okay. So who makes you mad? Who makes you angry?
Me, myself, and I.
Who? Yeah, them people. Who is it that causes you to really have an attitude toward folk?
Me, myself.
Do you notice what they're saying? It's like, well, oh, if these people didn't do this, they just get to me. Is it the people?
No.
Do you see what it said? Oh, you know what? I just don't like those kind of people. Those are the kind I avoid. And he says, is it them, or are they reminding you that that sleepy part of you has awakened? That isn't killed yet. That's too alive. That's too alive. Let me stop right here. Anything on this list so far that you said you're struggling with and you saying you hope God gets you better with it? You know, any parts of this where you say it's active in my life? Are you following what we're saying? That it's active in my life? I have malice, I have some unforgiveness. And he's like, well, is it what somebody did? Is it what somebody said? Is it really? Based on this, is it really? Yes, ma'am.
So we can get angry, but as long as because that's a natural
Emotion.
emotion.
Mhm.
But as long as we do not act on it, as long as we sin not, as long as, because I know I get angry now.
But here's the deal. If you get angry, you got to stop right there.
And
You
so-
you don't have time to bathe it, you know, and to soak it and to stroke it and to say I gotta calm down. I'll be better in a minute. I mean, a little while. Give me some time. All that stuff.
I do. That's my favorite. I said, just wait a minute.
Now here's why there's a problem.
Go ahead, Tim.
That's okay. Here's the problem where people who live in Anger City. The problem with Anger City, it expands to counties. It expands to counties. How does it expand to county? Because the next level of anger, and you know with your background, anger leads to what? It leads to rage. It leads to being out of control. It leads to thoughts. It leads to behavior. So therefore, it doesn't remain in this city. It doesn't remain on your block. That thing starts building because it's got cousins. I mean, that thing starts building. That's why you got to get it quick, because it becomes these other levels.
So when I say give me a minute in my mind, I promise you I'm talking to God. I'm talking like, oh, I'm repeating things because years ago I remember just blowing up at a teacher. She was so everywhere, and then but they looked at me when I didn't curse her. But they looked at me and started praying for me. I'm like, what y'all praying for me for? Y'all know this lady. I mean, look at her. Go get her. And I promise you, I went home and like 5 a.m. I got a call from somebody in New York. He had the wrong number, and he was a preacher's son. He was like, turn to Galatians 5 and I said, huh? And he said, read this with me. Why these things that you cannot get into heaven, outburst of wrath, and it let me know what I had did that day before, and I knew that was God, because I didn't know that man from. I knew who that was that let me know what I was doing. So now I'm conscious of it. That many years ago, I am conscious of getting angry, and I try to calm down. And I'm so grateful to you, Dr. Petty, because it's one little girl that was taking me there. Oh, one little girl that was taking me, and I'm like, girl, I'm your mama. I got a scar from here to here. You know, wait a minute. And you gave me permission to give her grace, to be compassionate like I wanted to, and not like my husband think I'm soft.
He's watching.
I know.
Mm.
I know. So, you gave me, and it freed me. It did. It didn't make me a wimp or anything like that. It made me conscious of my anger. And so, when I say give me a minute, I mean give me a minute to talk about these scriptures and let me get it out of me, not let it fester, because I know that it could go into a rage.
I needed this Bible study last night before my son kept coming to the room, waking me up to talk. And, I was calm at first, and then finally why do you keep coming in here? He started out peeping in the room. Twice he peeped in the room. Then he just finally came on in. Turn the light on, Daddy. Turn the light on. I said, well, you right by the light. You can turn it on. I need you to read something. Can you read it to me, son? And so Tracy finally said, I need to cut the umbilical cord, the cord that I got attached. So it was my fault that he came in the room, wanted to talk to me in the middle of the night. But I did calm down. I went to sleep. So it didn't keep me up. And I hope that he got what he needed, but it was too late at night.
Now, the reality is, nice try though. It really wasn't too late. Do you know the reality is? So I know I got a call in the middle of the night from somebody. So it could happen. The reality is, you are his what? What are you?
I'm his earthly father.
Okay, stop right there.
Daddy, mentor.
Just stay right there. Just stop right there. That's all you got to remember. And you find out by the time we get through this chapter that don't worry, you'll be spoken to again. So just hold on right there. You are his what now?
Earthly father.
Okay, there you got to go. All right. Okay. That's all you need to remember. That's all you need to remember for now. That's all you need to remember for now. So so therefore, and here's the thing, there should be liberation from these things. In Psalm 42, it says, soul, why are you cast down? In other words, you need to say something to you. It says, so we said, what's up? In other words, you got to say, hey, wait a minute. I don't need to talk to God about it. I need to just stop. I need to remind myself, now, why did I just go there? And then I need to shut it down. Or I can say, God isn't pleased with me. Shut it down. I don't say, Lord, forgive. No, shut it down. Because who should you be talking to? He's already said, stop it. He's already said, he said, so don't come to me for something I've already told you to do. This is a command. He said, this is a command. And he does not ask us to do something he's not empowered us to do. So he's saying, you don't have to go there. You don't have to go there.
So,
Yes, sir.
So being human don't get us off the hook.
Being what? What would you rather be? Dog? Cat? Moose? Gorilla?
I'm saying our human nature takes, it ain't easy to say stop. Jesus didn't say.
Guess what? Stop. No, I'm not going to let you go there because you just said it's not easy. If God said it to you, is he expecting you to do it in your own strength, or is he expecting you to do it because he's given it to you? Now you can go on and finish what you're saying.
You don't think he takes into account that?
No, I don't.
Okay, when
No, I
Jesus
don't.
went in the temple, he
No,
didn't
no.
say, well, Father, I'm going to wait a minute before I go in here. And
No. So you're trying to, what's your outcome? Tell me what you want what outcome?
That if Jesus got angry and did what he did, he didn't stop and say, let me think before I go in here.
Are you Jesus?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so what was he doing? So if you're going to take the context, that was showing, he said, my Father's house,
Okay.
representing him as the Son of God, set an example in that we can't go to that place. So if you're going to take, we can't use that one because now we shrunk him to us, and that was a divine response.
Okay, I got it.
That was a divine. We can't use that one. Now we can. That's why he said in Hebrews 4, you've got a high priest who's been tempted in all points, yet without sin. He said, therefore, we should rush to the throne of grace where we'll find help in the time of need, knowing that if I remember, because notice he already said, if you've been raised with him. Yeah. He said, now, if you're his, he said, I'm giving you something for you to carry out what I'm asking you to do. But if we're not his, then he's not looking for you. But he says, if you are his, if you're his, that's why it says, to 1:17. Notice what it said. These are commands. I want you to listen to this. I want us to listen to this as a reminder. If you have been raised with Christ, know that set your minds on things above, not on earth, for you died. And your life is now hidden in Christ. In other words, he said, you don't run it anymore in your natural state, human state. You would in your human state. But he says, once you entered into this union, it reverses. Before Christ, it was you. Enter that relationship, you don't run. He says, I'm putting something in you now that allows you to do these things. And that's when he comes back to say, when Christ, who is your life, you would appear with him. And then he says, here's what I want you to do because now I'm in your life. Put to death these things. These are direct. This is what you need to do. Because you're in my life. I'm in your life. He says, because of that, that's why you can do this. Without me, you got no chance. That's the distinction. Then now it is a humanity issue. It is a flesh issue, but not these things. These are not things that you pray about. These are things you act out. You don't pray about these things. You don't ask God for help with something he's already said. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. Now, if any of you have ever worked anywhere and they hired you for an assignment and they said, this is what I'm expecting you to do. Now, when they say this is what I'm expecting you to do, they're expecting you to do it because of what? And they hired you, right? That's why they're doing it. Now, they couldn't go to somebody who's not an employee and hold them accountable to say, you do this for us. They're not going to do that. But it's like, but you're one of our employees. If we tell everybody, our employees, to dress a certain way, that's what we're looking for. Now, if you don't, now somebody as a guest coming in, they don't have to. But he says, you're our employee. This is what we do here, and this is our employee manual. Have you read it lately? It said, this is what you're supposed to look like. And he said, we're going to hold you accountable for this because we're paying you to do this. We're paying you to do this. Now, if we abide by an employer because they say this is what we do, we go to the letter to keep a job.
We don't ask them to help us do it.
Because we know what's going to happen if we don't.
Can you help me come to work on time?
Can you ask them, literally I'm going to ask you, can you ask them to make somebody treat you right? And they're your coworker, and you all in the same department. Are they expecting you to get along? Yep. Or are they going to say one of you all or both of you all got to go? Because it's affecting everything we're doing. And they'll say, you got a decision to make. We're going to talk to you, but you got a decision to make. If you're going to stay here, here's what's got to happen. And you got to make a decision. I don't like how you treat me. You can't keep doing me. Like, well, we can stop treating you altogether. And then you can just go do whatever you want to anywhere. But it just won't be here. It just won't be here.
But I'm human.
You can be human as you want to, and you'll be unemployed. That basically is what it boils down to. That is what it boils down to. That's why I said this is tough. What you all have heard me say, and I'll say it again, it's humanly impossible to live the Christian life. It requires divine intervention. So when you try to do it humanly, you got no chance. You'll stop. You're like, hey, I can't do this. And you can't. Yeah, that's the truth. And you can't, because it'd be like, oh, no, these people, God, if Moses said, your people, God, kill Kill him. Let's start all over again. He said, let's start all over again. He said, you gave me these people. Get rid of all of them. Let's start all over again. And you know that same anger thing he never got. That's why he didn't make it to the promised land. He didn't deal with it. And God kept telling him, and he's like, no, your people done messed up again. I'm gonna knock a hole in this rock, although you just told me to speak to it. I'm going to knock a hole in it because your people done ticked me off. And he said, Mo, come here. Come here. You know, he said, I'm going to show you where you would have gone, but I got to get you out of here because you're messing everybody up because you're a bad example. Although I took you up and you did the commandments, you walked down before the people that had to cover your face and everything, but you haven't dealt with this thing here, and I got to bring you home with me so they can keep on going to the promised land. And you can't lead them, although that was the goal, but you have not dealt with something that you had when you were in Pharaoh's house. 40 years later, you still haven't dealt with it. And he said, Mo, come on home. You better off up here, and they can keep on going, because right now you're going to stop everybody from making it. Now, he's the one that God brought before him. And he said, you didn't deal with this. And if Moses, so you think we're going to get more grace than Moses? And well, no, it's because he's given. See, Moses was set apart, but the Holy Spirit has come and lived down inside of us. We don't have the excuse. 1 Corinthians 6 said, know you not that your body is the temple of God? He said, the Holy Spirit is down inside. So he said, we can't trip like that. Yes, ma'am. We can't trip like that.
You answered it, but I was going to say, that was a spiritual awakening for me, that I don't have to be bound to things like anger and gossip, all the things that we're supposed to put to death. And I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that Jesus does help us because he gave us a way. He said to flee it, right? So I don't have to get into it. I can flee it, and that's a part of me being alive in Christ and having my flesh put to death. And putting it into practice is freeing, because it don't feel good to be mad, right? So people lately, and I thank God for it because it's not me, but people get on my nerves, and I'm so free because I don't have to be mad at you. I just keep it moving.
Yeah. See, in other words, he says now, he said, don't lie to each other. But notice what it says, since you've taken off your old self, this verse 9, with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge. And so that, in other words, he's saying, that might have been you, but I can't justify that's me now. He said, yeah. He said, your old self, yeah, I knew how you were. He said, but this new you, it says now, you've been given something you did not have. That's why in John 13 through 16, he says, when I go, it's expedient I go so that the Comforter will come, so that the Spirit of God will come to live down inside of us. Whereas prior to the day of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit was present, but it moved in spots and spaces for situations with individuals. But it was not a permanent resident, not even in David. If it was, there never would have been Bathsheba. You follow me? And he called him a man after his own heart. But we have more authority than King David. You say, well, what are you talking about? Because the Spirit of God dwells inside of his children. He did not have that. Although he was called a man after his own heart, but right now he's resident in us. Ain't that deep? He's resident in us. So we're closer to him than King David. See, you never saw it like that, is it? That's what it really is. He said, I thought so much of you that on the other side of the cross, we're on the other side of the cross. And he says, where sin abound, Romans 6, grace even more abound. He says, so you don't have to be tripping. You don't have to be tripping. He said, you can trip, but you don't have to be tripping. It said, if you confess your sin, 1 John 1:9, do it quickly. He's faithful and just to forgive you and cleanse you. Don't relish in the fact that when you trip, you find yourself angry. It's like, I got to check this right now. And I can't try to explain it away or justify this is how I am. It's like, no. It's like, no. It's like, no. It's like, no. Because if that was the case, I'd be cussing all day long. I would be cussing all day long. You know, because that was always my dad's solution. My dad's solution to everything was cuss it. Cuss it. Whatever it is, cuss it. That was his primary vocabulary. That was his vocabulary. And then the people that I worked around, Michael, that's all they did. They just cussed. That was their language. You know, these are amateurs now. These cussers around, they amateur. In comparison to what I heard, it's this vulgar stuff all the time. That blankety blank son of a, all day long. All day long. All day. And if you stayed up at night, it continued. That's just what I'm going to tell you. It never stopped. It never stopped. It just never stopped. It never stopped. And I've never been a participant. But I was around it. But it was because of this relationship with Jesus Christ. No credit on my own. The relationship with Jesus Christ, which shifted it away to say, that doesn't belong to me at all. That does not belong to me. Did you realize the fact that I don't even have a southern drawl, and it's never been there? But all my siblings, it was evident. Because God had shifted me in a whole nother space because I fully embraced what he was doing. Because it's like, was there opportunity to do this stuff? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's either you're going to believe what he said. So notice he said, don't lie. Don't do all these stuff. So pick up in verse 12.
Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies.
Now, what does he say now?
Put on tender mercies.
Put on. Does that sound like a prayer request? No. Okay, that's what we just want to be clear about this now. Okay, go on. Go to start all over again.
Therefore, as the elect of God.
Notice it said, if you are that, then he says, you can get a whole new wardrobe. He said, go in your spiritual closet and change clothes. Because it's in there waiting on you. That's what he really is saying. He said, you don't have to go shopping. Your spiritual closet has all this in it. Now, what outfit do you want to wear? And that's what he's saying. Now, do you want to keep that one that you've been so comfortable with, or do you want to go into your closet? Now, start at verse 12 again.
Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another.
I'll stop right there. Notice that? So what is he saying? Dress up. Dress differently. And don't try to justify that all my clothes are dirty and I got to keep these on. Yeah, I'm going to keep this same outfit on because everything else is dirty. I might as well keep this one on. Because that literally is what it's saying. I might as well keep this one on because everything else is dirty, or it don't fit no more, or, you know, that kind. But notice he says, you bear with each other, forgive whatever grievances you may have against somebody, forgive even as God has forgiven you. No, these are things you didn't say, you don't, this is just what you do. Pick up at verse 14.
But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection.
Notice that. It says, you can, because it says, dress up. Dress up. Are we going to spend more time looking in the mirror trying to get us together, or are we going to start looking at our heart? Because that's what he's really saying. Do we spend more time trying to have an external appearance, or the heart? Matthew 15, because inside is what's going to act out our behavior, and we could have this great physical appearance. And he's saying, do you spend more time getting this together, getting your external physical self together, or the real you? the real you. It's what he is saying. Man, it's deep stuff. Pick up on verse 15.
And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which you also were called in one body, and be thankful.
Okay, now know what you said. Let means will you allow it? Will you allow it? Because in other words, he's saying, I don't want you troubled about stuff. John 14 said, let not your heart be troubled. He said, I don't want you troubled about stuff. He said, I want you to let this peace of God I want you to let this peace. In other words, it's like, you're going to let me do this or not? The peace of God is saying, you're going to let me do this or are you going to handle it? Because if you handle it, it's going to beat you up. He says, are you going to let this? He said, are you going to let my peace just handle this? Or are you going to be coming up with reasons? If you don't, you're going to come up with reasons to justify your behavior or your attitude. And it'll always be somebody to blame. It'll be a human that we'll point the finger at. Now, none of us can start talking about the devil been messing with us. We're not that important. I mean, do you think that the devil would stop dealing with international evangelists to come knock on our door? Really? The ones who preach before hundreds of thousands at a time, fill stadiums of unsaved people. How would you think you compare that if the devil himself had to deal with somebody, would he come looking for you or would he try to mess them up? Just think about that. Well, the devil is busy. How do you know? When did he knock on your door? Did you see him on top of your roof using AI? I mean, what is the deal? But that's the part that he's saying. All right, verse 16, and then because we're probably going to end up having to stop.
Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord.
Okay, all right, because this really is the key. Let the word of Christ dwell or go deep. And then as a result, it will cause you, the outcome is singing and making melody in your heart, psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. And I want you to notice that singing and making melody in your heart, it has nothing to do with what you sound or how people grade and whether or not you should be singing with a group or not. It has nothing to do with that. It says singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. Finally, verse 17, then we'll stop.
And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him.
So in everything, it's like, would he sign off on our attitude? Jesus, I need for you to, just like the person came to me, he said, your signature need to be on this form to get this check request. And the question is, would he sign off to say, I approve? You know, these political messages, I approve this message. Would he do it? Would he do it? Would he do it? All right. Let me get these last two verses because I said to the one. So we're going to get down to verse 21. Let's just do verses 18 through 21, and we'll pick up the rest of this next week.
Wives, submit to your own husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged.
All right, so the one that you circled verse 21. Okay, you just circled it. Okay.
He provoked me.
Okay. Yeah, because he disturbed you from your sleep, right? Uh-huh. That doesn't work either. Now, because we can't talk about the Father, so the children are to obey because it pleases the Lord. But you can't make them obey. This is the part you got to remember. You're not called to make them obey. In Ephesians 6, it says, train them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. You're responsible for training, not forced obedience. Because of what I did for you, and you're not going to do this in here. Like, no, it says, train them up. They are responsible. And you don't have to try to guilt them into doing what you want them to do. You're responsible for training. If you're right, then the Lord will deal with that. I didn't get these other two verses, verses 18 and 19, which are killer verses, but we have to do it. I want you to notice the term, verse 18, because this has been beat up and beat down all the wrong ways. Go to verse 18 for a minute.
Wives, submit to your own husbands as is fitting in the Lord.
The key part is, as it is fitting in the Lord. The reverse part of it, as fitting unto the Lord, is first, does it fit as unto the Lord, not is it the submission. Are you all following it? Now notice it said, as it is fitting. In other words, does it please him? And the parallel would be in Ephesians 5, where, let me tie these two things in. But notice it says, as it is fitting unto the Lord. In Ephesians 5:22, it says, wives, submit to your husband as to the Lord. Notice it says, as to the Lord. As to the Lord. As to the Lord. Not according to him, but as to the Lord. Okay. Verse 25. Husband, love your wife just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her to make her holy, cleansing her by washing with water, to present her without spot or wrinkle. So the burden of proof is that the setting should be of such to where the question isn't, are you going to submit to me? It's the fact that I'm serving you at such a high level that the word never has to come up. So this is the deep part about it. The burden of proof is on the husband to love even as Christ loved the church and gave himself to say, I'm going to get so lost in serving you to where you'll become the premier and I won't. Oh man, this is deep stuff here. Where you'll become the premier because you're supposed to shine. I'm not. Because that's what it says. As Christ loved the church, who gave his life. So in other words, it says, if he gave his life, then that meant then he was hidden because that became the bride. That means that the husband should be of such to where everything that looks right, it's got to be her. That it's got to be her. This is so then you back up in Ephesians 5. Do not be drunk with wine, verse 18, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourselves in psalms of hymn. And we just think that. But verse 21 said, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. So it eliminates, that overrides, because everything else follows verses 18 through 21. Do not be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourselves in psalm and hymn, giving thanks unto God in everything, and then submitting one to another. So if the higher principle is submitting one to another, then who submits to whom, or who out submits to the other one? But if I bypass 21, I'll dive into 22, and the dominant thing would have been out of the context of that, and it'll start talking about wives submit to husband, and it would have left out the whole theological term called pericope. If we want to play it all the way out, it's called pericope. And then what that says is you take the context of everything that's talking about the relationship, and you'd have to back yourself up to verse 18. And then work your way on down to the end of that chapter. It would have to start at 18 and go to the end of the chapter. It would not start at verse 22. If we're going to take it in context, then it's got to have all of it. Because you can't leave out submitting one to another and jump on wives submit to husband, because the higher level says what you should be doing together is as unto him. Now that you know that there are some churches that have had women beat to death because of jumping on 22 and saying you got to endure this anyway because he's the man. And it's totally out of context. They eisegeted the passage. They made it say what they wanted it to say. because that's not what the whole context says. It goes counter to everything. I mean, no, that is when you see what it says, how can you carve out the other, and all of a sudden, how can you leapfrog 21 and get to 22? Now that's correct. That is correct. That is correct. I mean, if you doing, who would not want to, if you're being exalted in this way? That's why my thing is, I don't have to ask her for anything. If I needed something, she would do it. I don't have to ask her, because I'm not going to ask her, so she probably won't do it. But she would do, whatever it is. She would do whatever it is, because I'm trying to get ahead of her all the time. So therefore, it's like the burden of proof that if the priest sets the example, and that's why God would have the priest kill if he went into the temple wrong. You might not hear him come back out. When you don't hear those bells anymore, that says he's dead. He ain't coming back out. He wasn't coming back out because he went in wrong. So in other words, it's just saying, Ananias led wrong. Sapphira followed his lead. And how did that turn out? Okay. Ahab did not lead, and Jezebel led. How did that turn out? Okay. In other words, and we could just keep on going, because the principle is always who's in charge ultimately. Who are we trying to please? That literally is what it boils down to. Now, we're going to stop here just to get any clarity that we have, and so that we can get any clarity as we go along. This is heavy lifting here, is that we're without excuses, and God is saying, I'm giving you what you need to carry this out. I'm giving you what you need to carry this out. And so DeJuan has a chance to say, Jamari, anytime you need to talk to me, I'm readily available.
I do it. I did it.
Yeah.
I still talk to him.
Yeah, with an attitude. So we talking about without an attitude. You're talking about without an attitude. Okay. That's what I mean.
Call one of y'all.
It's okay. It's okay.
Middle of the night.
Tell him he can call me. Tell him he can call. I'll answer.
No, I want some other people.
Oh, okay. So
I'm calling somebody else in the room. Do I have any takers? Mike. Okay, thank you. Got Mike.
sound like derelict of duty here, but no. You can, but it won't do any good. It's already set. There is no prayer to be made. It's a matter of doing it. I mean, that
I
literally.
still talk to him though. I did.
Right. So is there anything, any clarity, any question about something as we wrap this? Because all the excuses are taken off the table. The excuses are they're taken off. We don't have them. We really don't have them. We can make them up. Oh, and then I'll tell you one last thing about the golf thing that I was, and this is what God did yesterday. While I'm getting these images, I'm out hitting some balls. I hit a ball, and Michael, picture this. I've hit a ball, getting ready to go get in a golf cart. I hear somebody pulling up in a car saying, "Stay quiet, stay quiet." He's shouting at me. Now, the term "stay quiet" in golf means don't get out of line, don't throw yourself off, and all of that. Now, remember, all I hear is somebody in a car driving saying this. I'm like, okay. And he pulls up, and it's somebody that I know. Now, I actually did everything right on that particular shot that I hit. He was not close enough to see it. He was driving down the street, and then he pulled up and kept saying, "Stay quiet." But that "stay quiet" sound was another way for me to be reminded, here's this person coming from nowhere and saying that, and it's somebody that I know. So he gets out the car, now I know who he is. I've never known him to ever have a golf club in his hand. So obviously it had nothing to do with Him and God, he just kept saying, stay quiet. And then he came to tell me that a mutual friend had passed. So if it had been 30 seconds later, I would not have been where I was, nor would he have had a chance to stop and say that. But the words were used to be consistent with what I'm talking to you all about right now. It was stay quiet, which was a way of my knowing I was on the right track, because that was the term I had just used with somebody. I've got to stay quiet. Now, isn't that deep? Okay. About how the Lord's going to always confirm your assignment. He's going to always do it. He's going to always do it. So now we've got work to do. We should be better off as a result. We should not have a list. 1 Corinthians 13 said love keeps no list. Love doesn't do this. It's not easily provoked. You go on down the line. So you want to take some time to read 1 Corinthians 13 to supplement what we've dealt with tonight, to say, if I love him, then it says love doesn't do this, but it does this. It mirrors this passage, because it doesn't hold grudges, doesn't count, it doesn't do any of that stuff. It doesn't do any of that. So Father, thank you for challenging us in here this evening, and for those who have tuned in and for those who will, to have the chance to live a life that you're pleased as we set our affection on things above, not on things on the earth. And thank you for having empowered us to be able to get it right. And thank you for the praise reports that will come as a result of a redirect, of a proper alignment, and not being misaligned. And we ask that you would protect them as they go, that it's a night of rest, and especially for the one, in case he has to talk again in the middle of the night. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we are. He learned. He learned.